Let's get ready to mortgage. He is the prince of programs, guru of guidelines, master of matrices. He puts the fun in funding. Please welcome Mark, Mr. Mortgage Eitel.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show, and we are very glad to be joining you for another beautiful weekend day. I've got Dom in the studio with me. Dom's the producer extraordinaire, makes me sound halfway audible, and mans the board as well as the questions hotline. And let's go ahead and throw that out there. The Anytime hotline is 561-291-8569. That's 561-291-8569. You can call in with your questions or text your questions if you prefer not talk to anybody to that number. And as always, Dom will get those to me and we'll get them on the air. Also, you can visit the website, www.mr.mortgage. That's www.mr.mortgage. Never ever a .com, just mr.mortgage. There's a contact us link there. You can fill out your question and shoot it to us. We'll get to it as well. So as always, as I mentioned, super happy to be with you today. I hope you got a cup of coffee with you. I know I got mine sitting here on the desk with me. I'm kind of getting off to a slow start this morning, but super happy to be here. So we normally start the show with kind of the news of the week and, most specifically interest rates and real estate related news. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Everybody who is alive knows a few things that are going on in the world. One is what's going on in Europe and the other is interest rates are rising. So we did it, folks. We finally cracked the 5% interest rate market on 30-year fixed rates. Now, that's not on all loan products. Some loan products are still in the fours, but we did see a few fives pop up this week. So we are in this new rate environment. It looks like we're going to be here for a while. Super good news is it's ridiculously affordable money historically, and it still makes a lot of sense. So that seems to be the conversation I've had a lot of this week as people they're a little panicked by what's happening in the interest rate environment. And you heard me last week talk a lot about budget versus rate. And I'm going to dive in on that a little bit this week also because I think it's super important. But I think we just need to keep everything in perspective. I was thinking about that a lot this week, kind of perspective. And think about a time where the weather was amazing. We had 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days in a row of sunny skies, blue skies, not a cloud in the sky. Air was crisp and cool, and you were happy to be outside. You were getting everything done. You might have even started some yard work projects. That's how much you enjoyed to be outside. And maybe day 5 or 6, it started to get cloudy and it started to rain. And maybe it wasn't even a heavy rain, but just a drizzle. But it was enough to kind of sour your mood, and you thought, you know what, I'm going to wait this out. I'm going to go sit in the house. The weather sucks. It's raining. And that changed everything you were doing. You no longer were interested in going out there and checking, things off your to-do list. Now, also imagine a time where the weather was crap. I mean, for several days in a row, hard rain, windy, cold, didn't stop raining. And you were cooped up in the house. I mean, one more day in the house and you were going after somebody with a pair of scissors. And then it starts to clear up a little. Sun starts peeking through the clouds and the rain lets up. It doesn't stop raining. It's only drizzling. And you think, whew, man, it's only drizzling. I got to get out there and get some stuff done. Hell, I've even played golf in the drizzle. So I know what it's like to be motivated to get something done when it's just lightly raining. But my point in all of that is it's the same drizzle. It's your perception of what that means at that moment. So maybe the super sunny days that you were whistling down the sidewalk were the, 2 and 3% interest rates of this last year and a half. And this feels like a thunderstorm to you because rates have started to creep up a little bit. But in reality, historically, these rates are really the sunny days that you should be whistling down the sidewalk. So I just share all that. I think it's super interesting to try to keep everything in perspective. And I'm not saying that it's not frustrating if you were qualified for a mortgage at 3.5%, and now you're looking at a significantly different class of properties that now that rates have moved up into the 4s and even low 5s, depending on your loan program. I'm just asking you to kind of catch your breath and keep it all in perspective. I know in my household, Mrs. Mortgage and I like the old TV shows. We watch the 70s reruns. We found a couple of TV networks. I think one's called Cozy and one's called Antenna TV. I don't know. She's smarter than I am. She programs them into the Roku for me. But we watch, Archie Bunker, and we watch George Jefferson, and my favorite of all time, Fred Sanford. And I really enjoy those old TV shows. Maybe I enjoy them because they remind me of a time where we could kind of laugh at each other and ourselves and not take everything so personally. But I guess where I'm going with this is Johnny Carson is also on that network. So the other night, it was Monday night of this week, I was watching the Johnny Carson show, and he does his monologue, and he usually touches a little politics, a little economy, whatever the news of the day is. And he mentioned in his monologue that inflation had hit 12% that month. And, the audience groaned a little bit, and he made his inflation joke, and the audience laughed. And then Johnny finished the monologue, and Ed was chuckling, and, Doc and the orchestra played him into the commercial. They came out of the commercial, and Johnny did his interviews, and it was a funny show. It was a good episode. But what my point in that is, those people left the show, and they put gas in their car and bought groceries and went to work and went home, and they lived through it. Hell, a lot of people prospered. If you look at the charts, home values increased during that time period. So I just found it super interesting that to us in this market, because we're coming out of all of those sunny days whistling down the sidewalk, this feels like maybe a bigger deal than it is as far as the cost of money. I know housing is still expensive and a lot of people are feeling the pressure. I'm not discounting any of that. I'm just asking us to keep it all in perspective. So I jumped on the internet and did the research like I always do. I geek out on this stuff. And for Johnny to reference 12% inflation, that had to be in the very late months of 1979. In 1979, the inflation rate average was 11.25. In 1981, it crept to 13.5. So that's why I'm guessing about that timeline for the show. So then I thought, wow, what were mortgage rates at that same time? Mortgage rates in 79 were 11.2%, and in 1980 they were 13.75%. And I pulled some of the headlines from the old newspapers, and it was either a Washington paper or a New York paper said the government has to do something about the housing crisis, right? They were calling it a housing crisis back then. And then I said to myself, hey, keep digging. What was home appreciation during that same cycle? In 1979, when inflation was almost 12% and interest rates were over 11, housing appreciated at 12.2%. So it outpaced inflation. People were still making money buying a house and going home every night. In 1980, when mortgage rates jumped up, appreciation was still 5.69%. In 81, it was 11.51%. In 82, it was 7.21%. So my point in all that is, even though we were experiencing heavy duty inflation, high interest rates, we were still going through a housing appreciation cycle. And interest rates hit their all-time high of 18.63% in October of 1981. And in 81, appreciation was 11.5%. So I find all that interesting. Another big conversation I have a lot, and we'll dive into it a little deeper during the show, is do I feel like this increase in interest rates is going to start to tip the market and maybe we're going to see a crash? And I think crash is a wildly overused word. I believe that the appreciation is going to flatten, just like we referenced in that time period of the late 70s, early 80s. I don't think we're seeing a crash by any means, and that's more related to supply and demand. And I'll dive into that, and then we'll start taking questions. But keep everything in perspective. Whistle while you walk in the rain. 5%, 4%, 6% interest is still ridiculously affordable money. There's still a tremendous amount of opportunity in this market. So don't let the headlines scare you off. Look at your budget instead of the interest rate. We'll talk about that too on the other side of this break. 561-291-8569 is how you get your questions to us. That's 561-291-8569. Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. You hear me all the time talking about the need to have the very best team representing you in a real estate transaction. And that starts with a really great agent. If you've got a great agent, that's awesome. But if you don't, check out www.reallyGreatAgents.com. There you'll find the best of the best, regardless of the city they work in or the brokerage they work for. www.reallyGreatAgents.com, www.reallyGreatAgents.com.
Here's another 5-star review.
My wife and I own a small business. And the way our accountant file our taxes, we don't show much income on tax returns. Because of this, it looks as if we don't make the money. This was a problem for our bank when we applied for a mortgage. But not for Mark. He verifies our income by using our monthly bank statements. Mark and his Mr. Mortgage team made a big difference for me. Yes, I am happy to recommend Mr. Mortgage Mark.
It's not every day that you need an appraisal, whether it's for a divorce settlement, estate planning, or maybe you're appealing a tax assessment, or you just want to make sure you have adequate coverage in your property insurance. When you need a certified appraisal, turn to my friends at SOFLappraisal.com. That's SOFLappraisal.com. Peter and his team have been appraising properties here in South Florida for decades. SOFLappraisal.com. And tell them you heard this on the Mr. Mortgage Show.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Let's get ready to mortgage. He is the prince of programs, guru of guidelines, master of matrices. He puts the fun in funding. Please welcome Mark, Mr. Mortgage Eitel. Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now, 561-291-8569.
All right, we are back. That's right, I do put the fun in funding. It is still fun to fund deals, even at these interest rates. So, hey, another thing I mentioned is I get asked all the time, do I think this increase in interest rates is going to influence the market enough to cause a crash? And I don't have a long-term crystal ball. I try not to look out, more than the next few years. And I want to talk really briefly about what I think is more closely influencing and almost governing the prices at the moment, and that's supply and demand. So when there are more for sale, right, whatever the product is, then people who want to buy it, it goes on sale. Think of, here, I'm going to give you a great example. Let me finish this thought first. When there's less for sale than people who want to buy it, the price goes up. Now, we all went through the pandemic. We were all out there searching for toilet paper and paper towels and hand sanitizer. And there was a time period where there was none anywhere. It wasn't in the stores. I mean, the gas station convenience store was selling single rolls for, I don't know, $5 or $7 a roll just to get you through. So I know that the demand outpaced the supply. And we all remember this. We went through a period of a few months there where we were buying those essentials on eBay. People were paying, $25 for a pump of hand sanitizer. This is a very real and recent experience. That was because due to panic buying, demand outpaced supply. So it was scarce. It was hard to get. Prices went up. That's what's happening in housing. There's more people who want to buy than want to sell at the moment. So that's supporting the values that we currently experience. Now, most of us remember the crash. What happened in the crash was more people wanted to sell, and actually more people had to sell because of the mortgage product that they used. But my point in that is there was more supply entering the market than the demand for it at that particular instance for other reasons, but nonetheless more supply than demand. And to finish that pandemic thought, Mrs. Mortgage and I found a brand of paper towels and tissue paper that was made from bamboo. And it was available at CVS, and CVS stocked up on it because they couldn't get Scott's or Bounty or anything. And we started buying it, And, we bought into the whole thing that it was green and good for the environment, and it's brown, so it's kind of strange looking. It looks like craft paper. But anyway, my point is that was all that was available, so we bought it. It was super expensive. But right after everything normalized again, guess what? Nobody wanted that brown bamboo paper towel product. So there was more supply of that product than demand, and it went on sale. And I am not too proud to admit there are still 6 cases of that in my pantry because it was buy one, get 3 free. So I loaded my trunk up with bamboo paper towels and toilet tissue that was on sale. But my point in that is supply has to outpace demand before prices go down. And the cost of money in and of itself is not enough at this juncture to push down demand. At 5%, people are still lining up to borrow money. So think about Bentleys. Bentleys don't go on sale. That's because there's never a flood of them in the market. So supply and demand control the cost of something much more than the actual cost of the money ever will. So if you're going to be looking for a pullback in pricing or that crash that you may think is coming, I personally don't. But if you do, look to inventory levels and time on market as an indicator of that happening, not necessarily the cost of money. And who knows, if interest rates keep soaring, maybe it will damper demand to the point that there is more supply. But we first have to level out before we even get upside down in a supply situation. So supply and demand govern prices. That's where I was going with that. So we're going to jump into some questions. I think Dom has given me the thumbs up that we've got one teed up. What do we have, Dom?
We have Carol that emailed us. She's asking, I'm just starting to look for investment property. Is there a good website to find foreclosure houses or maybe one that's going into foreclosure?
Hey, Carol, that's a great question. And yeah, thanks, Dom. So here's what happens whenever we get into a rapidly appreciating cycle is everybody wants to be investors. And Carol, I'm not discouraging you. It's a wonderful opportunity. I'd like to learn a little bit more about your circumstance. Are you thinking of flipping properties or are you thinking of buying and renting them, becoming a landlord? Because there are 2 very different strategies when acquiring those different investment opportunities. So, but to answer your question, if you're looking for HUD foreclosures, which is typically going to be the more entry-level house, entry-level price point, the website for HUD's foreclosures is hudhomestore.com, and you will need an agent to register to bid for you on those homes. But yeah, HUD Home Store is where the FHA homes are liquidated, if you will. So that would be a place to look. Auction.com handles some of the, I believe it's auction.com. You know what? If it's not, text or email me, or I'll get you the, I believe it's called auction.com, handles some of the Fannie and Freddie foreclosures. And then I know Zillow has that, likely to go into foreclosure category. I haven't seen that be too accurate because I think what it does, I think it picks up list pendants from the tax rolls and advertises those as, and they are potential foreclosures. But I think the reality of that particular person is they have so much equity that they'll most likely sell at retail, or if they're in the position to, refinance. But that's another place to look. But HUD Home Store is where the FHA foreclosures are sold. And back to the difference in mindset and strategy around those. So if you're thinking of flipping, be cautious because now is a bit of a challenging time to flip properties because of the cost of labor and material that goes into the construction trades. So there are many, many reports and news pieces that I'm seeing on, stations like CNN or their website, CNN and CNBC, where they're talking about flippers who don't have the horsepower to finish the project because the expenses are more than they imagined. I mean, I watched a story the other day where the elevator company is putting 3 elevators in this apartment building, and elevator 1 went in, elevator 2 was 20% more because of the cost of materials, and elevator 3 was 17% more than elevator 2. So if you're flipping, I would be cautious just to have a really good handle on your labor and construction costs. I know we were looking at some remodeling projects at our home, and we were surprised by, the cost just walking through Home Depot and making a very basic materials list. And so flipping, I would just be mindful of that cost, because I believe a lot of people are underestimating it. And home buyers and home inspectors are watching out for the lipstick on a pig type flips. The inspectors talk about how, the granite countertops are not enough to overlook the electrical problems or the air conditioning unit that needs to be replaced. So, but if you're buying with the intent to rent it, I think it's an amazing market to do that in. And I don't necessarily think it's fair what's happening in the rent market right now. I certainly don't. I know Dom and I talked about it a week or two ago. His rent, even his went up, and he's a master negotiator from hanging around with me. And he's getting mortgage ready, by the way, folks. This guy has his stuff together. He's not a renter because he has to. He's got a master plan. But nonetheless, if you're going to buy to rent, I think it's an amazing opportunity, because we all see what's happening with rent prices, and the home values are supporting rent prices, right? Because it's what are you going to do? Are you going to buy or are you going to rent? So people have less choice and less option, and it's putting more demand even in the rental market. And we see the stories where institutional investors are coming in and buying single family homes and renting them out. So the DSCR loan product that we talk about all the time is an awesome loan product for even first time investors. And I think that sounds about like what your category might be as a first-time investor, and I'd be happy to walk you through that DSCR program if you're buying rentals. So anyway, I hear the police sirens rolling up behind me. That means we're heading into a break. On the other side of this break, we'll take more of your questions, and get those questions to us via the Anytime Hotline. That's 561-291-8569. That's 561-291-8569. Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. You hear me all the time talking about the need to have the very best team representing you in a real estate transaction. And that starts with a really great agent. If you've got a great agent, that's awesome. But if you don't, check out www.reallyGreatAgents.com. There you'll find the best of the best, regardless of the city they work in or the brokerage they work for. www.reallyGreatAgents.com. www.reallyGreatAgents.com.
Here's another 5-star review.
We started our loan with a different company. They said we were approved, but at the last minute they told us there was a problem. I still don't know what went wrong, but thankfully our real estate agent told us about Mark. I was pretty stressed, but it's the perfect house, so we gave Mark a shot. He got it done. I'm not sure what was different, but I don't really care. We even got a better interest rate and with less money out of pocket than the first guy quoted us. It was a great surprise. Yes, I'm happy to recommend Mark and his Mr. Mortgage team.
It's not every day that you need an appraisal, whether it's for a divorce settlement, estate planning, or maybe you're appealing a tax assessment, or you just want to make sure you have adequate coverage in your property insurance. When you need a certified appraisal, turn to my friends at SOFLappraisal.com. That's SOFLappraisal.com. Peter and his team have been appraising properties here in South Florida for decades. SOFLappraisal.com. And tell them you heard this on the Mr. Mortgage Show.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now, 561-291-8569.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel. I host the Mr. Mortgage Show. We do this little mortgage party every weekend at this time on this station, or if you're listening to us on the podcast replays, that's awesome. And share that, would you? We're trying to spread the word. We're on all the podcast networks. If you want to check out some back episodes, just go to Google and type in the Mr. Mortgage Show. Just search us. You'll find us. We pop up everywhere. But yeah, podcast is now up and live and just about everywhere. Matter of fact, I had a really cool experience. A friend of mine was traveling and he listened to us live actually on the iHeart app in Ecuador. So he was in the mountains of Ecuador listening to Dom and I talk about mortgages and real estate. So that was a pretty cool experience. So the global Mr. Mortgage movement is underway. No, I'm not going to let my ego get the better of me, but I just thought that was a cool experience. So that's 24/7 on demand, the Mr. Mortgage Show. Find us on the podcast networks. But yeah, shoot your questions to us, 561-291-8569. 561-291-8569, or visit the website. That's www.mr.mortgage, no .com, just mr.mortgage. So, hey, Carol, I hope that answered your question. I don't want to poo-poo you being a first-time investor because there is some amazing opportunity out there. Just get a good handle on your material and labor costs if you're going to flip. But that DSCR loan is an amazing product for buying and holding an investment property, especially for a first timer. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, let's keep this party rolling. Let's get some more questions underway. Dom, what do we have?
We have David sent in a text to us. He's asking, I'm getting ready to apply and calculating my debt ratios. I co-signed for my son's car. He pays the payment, but it's on my credit. Do I count that as my debt?
Hey, David, that's a great question, my man. And we see a lot of that, right? So, yes. So here's the thing. There's two ways to do this, and 12 months is the magic number. So if your son has been making the payments for 12 months or more, and we can document that. So if he's making the payment from his account, which we always recommend, and we can go back and either look at the previous 12 months bank statements, or if he's old fashioned and can get us the canceled checks, if we can document that he's been making the payment for at least 12 months, then we don't have to count that in your debt ratios. And it sounds like you probably were online running your ratios, which is awesome that you're one step ahead of the game. But if that's not the case and it hasn't been a year, or he's giving you cash, or half the payment on this week and half the payment next week, and it's inconsistent, and you're making the payment because you don't want your credit to be affected, then it's going to be less likely that we can remove that from your debt ratios, unless he's giving you, let's say the payment's $381.76. If he's giving you a check for $381.76 every month, but you're making the payment, we can document that he's paying it in that instance. So we need to look at him having made that payment for the last 12 months for that to be removed from your debt ratio. And while we're talking about that, I want to throw out a situation that we see a lot of, because that also goes to the person who is self-employed, or they're self-employed. They own a company, and their company pays for their car. So you're a contractor, or a salesperson, doesn't matter what you are. You decide, I'm going to go buy a new car, but I get a better interest rate if I buy it in my name, and I'll just use my company account to make the payments. If you've been doing that for 12 months, then that's not your debt, that's the company's debt. It's the same thing like David's son. We have to document that the company's been making the payment for 12 months. Here's where it gets very frustrating for everybody, and me included, and I wish there was a way around it. And we're trying to accomplish a way around it. If we figure this out, we'll let everybody know. And there may be a guideline change in the future that works around this instance. But let's say you're a contractor and you buy the trucks in your name. You got great personal credit, and the company pays the trucks. They have for years. You've always done it this way. Well, now you're going to buy a new truck. You trade in the old truck, or the lease is up and you buy a new truck. That 12 months starts over with that new vehicle. So you have to wait a new 12 months. You have on that new car payment, that starts that cycle all over again. So if you're in the mortgage process, and I've had this happen on more than one occasion, because logically it makes sense. The company's still paying my car. The company has always paid my car. Why now do I have to show that it's been paying this car for 12 months? And again, we argue this case with the underwriters all the time. But if you're about to make a purchase and you're considering getting a new vehicle, in that circumstance, wait if you can. Because if the company is paying for your current car and you can show the company's paying for your current car, then we don't have to count it in your ratios. The minute you go grab that new car and there's a new car payment, a new loan on your credit report, that starts that clock all over again. And I know it doesn't make sense. Not everything in this side of the business makes sense, but that's just the reality. We see a lot of that. So even if it's the car payment's less than the other one, there's so many circumstances where you'd think, hey, why is this even an issue? So to answer your question, David, if you can show that your son's been paying the car for the last 12 months, you're good to go. If it hasn't been 12 months, it's going to be your debt. And then hopefully that self-employed circumstance made some sense to some people who are in that situation. So we see it come up a lot, and frustrating, but that's just the way the underwriting guidelines work at the moment. So hopefully that helped. Hey, Dom, do we have another question teed up?
We do. We have Susan that left this for us on the hotline. She's asking, we are building a new home and our builder's now trying to raise the price. Is this even legal? They offered to let us cancel, but we want to buy the house. This seems illegal. Is it?
Hey, Susan. So, wow. Yeah. And we're seeing this happen. Now, I haven't personally experienced this, but you hear me talk all the time about the group of agents and mortgage professionals that we network with to try to stay in touch with everything industry-wide so nothing catches us off guard. We're hearing more and more of this happening in the marketplace. And you have to read the contract. There are clauses in the contract that, and it's not in every builder's contract, so it's case by case, but we've seen it happen. We're seeing more of it. And if it's in the contract that the builder can escalate because of whatever the circumstance is, in this instance, it's most likely construction costs. It could, and again, legal, I'm going to direct you to an attorney. Always, always, always. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing and hearing as the industry is reporting, if you will. And I'm hearing a lot of this lately where the builders are citing increase in material costs and labor. And because of that, they're either offering to let you out of the contract or they're asking you to pay an increased price. So I'm not in the position to offer an answer if it's legal or not. But I do know that it is in builders' contracts, and I am of the mind that if you sign the contract and it's in the contract, it most likely is there for a reason and is probably defensible, or the builder wouldn't have put it in there to begin with. So it certainly is frustrating. It's not fair. But I think also, too, what's happening is I know we have a tendency to say greedy builder, greedy builder, greedy builder. I think some of it's legit. I think some of them have suffered some serious increases in construction costs, and they might be losing money or breaking even at that contracted price that they negotiated with you, 6, 9, 12 months ago. And purely from a business decision on their end, whether they lose money and sell you the house or they break even and sell you the house, which essentially is losing money, right? Because they're in business to make money. They're going to mark the house up based on their increased and unforeseen costs along the way. So I'm really sorry to hear that. I don't envy the circumstance. I would call an attorney. If you need an attorney, I can probably refer you to somebody. But yeah, I would talk to an attorney just to have them digest that contract. And maybe there's something in the contract that allows you to ask the builder to document the increases. Maybe you can negotiate the increase and say, okay, if you're asking for, and I'm guessing because you didn't tell us, 20, 30, 40,000 more, show us how you got to that number before we just agree to pay it. I don't know if that's an option, but hey, I'm really sorry that's happening to you, but we are hearing that happen more and more in this particular market as prices are getting, the builders, just like they're getting the rest of us, they're paying more for everything too. So anyway, on the other side of this break, we're going to keep diving into your questions. Shoot those questions to us, 561-291-8569. That's 561-291-8569 or www.mr.mortgage. Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. You hear me all the time talking about the need to have the very best team representing you in a real estate transaction. And that starts with a really great agent. If you've got a great agent, that's awesome. But if you don't, check out www.reallyGreatAgents.com. There you'll find the best of the best, regardless of the city they work in or the brokerage they work for. www.reallyGreatAgents.com, www.reallyGreatAgents.com.
Here's another 5-star review.
We kept our business above water with credit cards during the pandemic. I'm glad we did. Business is better than ever. But I didn't want to be a slave to those credit card payments. I called Mark about the rec loan he advertises. Long story short, we did a rec refinance and paid off everything, even the car. Now we only have the mortgage payment. We're saving a bunch every month. Yes, we are happy to recommend Mark and the Mr. Mortgage team.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now, 561-291-8569.
All right, we are back, and you heard the man. 561-291-8569 is how you get your questions to us, either via your voice or a text. Dom is manning the hotline, and he'll get your questions on the air. Or if you want to get on the air with us, he'll do that for you too, but you got to call 561-291-8569 or visit us online at www.mr.mortgage, www.mr.mortgage. So we are going to keep this party rolling. Hey, Dom, what do we have question-wise?
We have Jessica who sent in a text. Jessica's asking, when does changing real estate agents make sense? We've made several offers and our agent doesn't seem to be getting it done. Any advice?
Wow, Jessica, that's a tough one, right? Because it's hard right now for the offers to get accepted. I can't answer that as a general rule of thumb. If you still believe that your agent's a good agent, that they have your best interest at in their heart, they're putting your interests forward, I think you should stick with them. Now, if you feel like they're misrepresenting you, or they're giving you bad advice, or they're putting you in jeopardy, they're suggesting offers that make you uncomfortable, either financially or otherwise, then maybe it's time to change. But I wouldn't blame the agent on offers not getting accepted, because it's super competitive out there right now. And we're seeing, people making 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 offers before finally getting that one offer accepted. Super frustrating. I don't know that I would blame your agent right out of the box on that one, but I can understand your frustration. And speaking of agents, you always hear me talking about, the need for a really great agent. And I'm happy to get you in touch with one if you need one. Jessica, I'd like you to explore that relationship you already have before you jump ship, if that's the only thing that's frustrating you about that person. Matter of fact, I speak on a panel every Tuesday at 2:00. There's me and 3 other mortgage professionals from other areas of the country, and we do a open forum live Q&A for real estate agents all over the country. And I threw out a question to the panel and to the audience, just out of curiosity: who has had the experience of the most consecutive offers with the same client, same agent, and same mortgage professional involved before a transaction was accepted? Now, I was expecting to hear 15, 17, and I did. Some people were 11. A lot of people seemed to be 6 to 8. That seemed to kind of be the magic window. But in this, and I'm shouting Jasmine out in particular, and she's a rock star. But Jasmine stood up and said, or raised her hand and said, 73 offers over 2 years before that FHA offer got accepted. So, man, that's a soldier right there. If you've got somebody on your team that's willing to fight through 73 offers to get you accepted, that's definitely somebody worth sticking with. And man, what a celebration for that. This particular client, Jasmine told the story, single mom, nurse. I mean, all of the heartstrings were tugged with this particular story. They hung in there after 73 offers. So I encourage you, if your agent seems to be doing a good job, you believe that they're giving you good advice. If your only frustration is that your offers aren't getting accepted, I'd hang in there. But as always, if you're looking for a really great agent, I'm happy to direct you to one. So hopefully that helps. I know the market's crazy out there. It's super frustrating, but hang in there. Hopefully you're not that 73. Hopefully you're that 6 to 8 person. But anyway, it's frustrating. But moving along, I don't know if we have any other questions teed up. I see Dom kind of giving me the signal there. What do we have?
We have another text question. This is from Elizabeth. Elizabeth is asking, we are selling by owner and have an FHA offer. Is there a downside for us to take this offer?
Wow. So no, Elizabeth, I'm going to say no, there's not. Assuming that the price is what you want it to be, and assuming that they are underwritten and ready to close, it's a good, solid approval. From your standpoint as the seller, the only hangups on an FHA transaction could be property condition, right? So if there are, no GFI outlets in the kitchen, the inspector might call that out and require there to be GFI outlets in the kitchen. You can't have an unprotected outlet next to a sink in your backsplash in the kitchen. And some of the older homes didn't have GFIs and weren't upgraded. It's usually an inexpensive repair, but there's a high likelihood that a appraiser or an inspector will call that out. That will have to get upgraded. Then one other thing that FHA inspections typically call out is chipping paint, especially if the home is built, I think it's before 74 or 72. Don't hold me to that. It's in the 70s when homes were painted with lead paint. And there were health hazards with children eating chipping paint off the windowsills. So FHA, because it's a government insured program, requires there to be no health hazards. Chipping paint is one of them. One of the other things that you need to take into consideration if you're on well and septic, FHA requires the distance between the well and septic to be confirmed. They have minimum setback requirements. They don't want you drinking poopy water. It makes sense, but it does need to be called out on the survey that the distances are met. So those are the big things that I see people unprepared for on an FHA offer. No, if the house is sound and in good condition, none of that should be an issue. There is a little bit of misconception around an FHA appraisal that it's harder to get through. Most of it's because of what I just mentioned, those kind of extra things that are being looked at and the safety issues that are being called out. If the home doesn't meet the appraised value, that FHA appraisal is attached to your home for a period of time, meaning that address is in the FHA database. So if the home doesn't appraise and the next person makes an FHA offer and that first appraisal is going to be the number you're stuck with, even if the second appraisal is higher, because it's attached to your property. Other than that, if the house is in good condition, the price is where you need it to be, and you think it's going to appraise, I would not hesitate to take an FHA offer. And they can even buy it if it doesn't appraise. They can pay over, but you want to make sure they have the cash to do that. So I am a big fan of the FHA product because it helps a lot of first-time home buyers enter the marketplace. And in this market, anything we can do to get that first person into the homeownership cycle, I think it's in all of our advantage to do that. If the price is where you need it to be to sell that home, I would not hesitate to give that person an opportunity. And if you don't have an agent advising you, if you're trying to do this by yourself, give me a shout or shoot me an email. I'll be happy to review the offer. Not the offer, the approval, and just give you my opinion if they've gone through the process far enough. I'm not going to try to sway them to switch lenders, but I can just give you an opinion that, yes, this looks to be run through the underwriting system. They've got this is a good approval. I'm happy to do that for you, but I encourage you, if it makes sense financially, to give that FHA offer a shot, because honestly, we need that first-time home buyer in the market, because without that first-time home buyer, there's no move-up buyers. And without move-up buyers, nobody goes and buys the McMansion. And then if you don't make that transition, you're not able to sell for cash or sell for a big equity cash out and come down here to Florida and pay cash for your dream house. At some point, you had to be that first-time buyer. So that FHA product works really well for them, and I would encourage it. So also, too, if you're thinking of buying with an FHA loan, there's a lot of flexibility in that program that people aren't aware of. You can go and buy a duplex and live in one side and rent the other side out. You can buy a fourplex, actually, and live in one and rent the other three. I was talking to an agent in Jacksonville, amazing lady that I do some business with, and she's representing a buyer in a property that she stumbled upon and found this for him. And it's an amazing opportunity. Property's under $500,000, and on the same property is a single family home, a triplex, and a duplex. So this guy's going to have 5 rental incomes, and he's going to live in the single family. So he's going to be making money without making a payment to go home every month, because he's going to have more cash than he needs to make his bills. So from the rental income, assuming they all pay their rent. But anyway, yeah, FHA is a super product for the first-time home buyer. And Elizabeth, if that's the case, price and condition are all good to go, I would not hesitate to take that offer. So you hear that police siren rolling up behind me. We're going to run into another break. Shoot your questions to us. 561-291-8569 is the Anytime hotline. 561-291-8569 or www.mr.mortgage. That's mr.mortgage, never a .com. Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. You hear me all the time talking about the need to have the very best team representing you in a real estate transaction. And that starts with a really great agent. If you've got a great agent, that's awesome. But if you don't, check out www.reallyGreatAgents.com. There you'll find the best of the best, regardless of the city they work in or the brokerage they work for. www.reallyGreatAgents.com. www.reallyGreatAgents.com.
Here's another 5-star review.
As a realtor, I have a bunch of mortgage brokers to choose from, but I prefer to work with Mark and his Mr. Mortgage team. In this crazy market, there is no room for error, especially on the mortgage side. Mark's team moves fast, keeps everybody in the loop, and makes things happen. They always give my clients a great deal and take the time to walk them through every step of the process. When you're considering a lender, I encourage you to talk to Mark Eitel and the Mr. Mortgage team.
It's not every day that you need an appraisal, whether it's for a divorce settlement, estate planning, or maybe you're appealing a tax assessment, or you just want to make sure you have adequate coverage in your property insurance. When you need a certified appraisal, turn to my friends at SOFLappraisal.com. That's SOFLappraisal.com. Peter and his team have been appraising properties here in South Florida for decades. SOFLappraisal.com. And tell them you heard this on the Mr. Mortgage Show.
Are inflation and everyday expenses eating into your retirement income? Maybe you've considered a reverse mortgage and have unanswered questions like, do I still own my property? Can the bank kick me out? What happens when I die? Can I still leave my house to my kids? These are all great questions. Visit www.moreaboutreverse.com to learn more. That's www.moreaboutreverse.com. www.moreaboutreverse.com.
Welcome back to the Mr. Mortgage Show. Call us now, 561-291-8569.
All right, we are back. My name is Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show. We do this mortgage mashup every weekend. Dom and I are in here and do our best to get all your questions on the air and answer them for you. So 561-291-8569 is the Anytime hotline. And by anytime, I mean during the week. That pushes to my office. It rings here in the studio during the show, but then we forward it to the office during the week. So 561-291-8569 is the Anytime hotline. And let me throw it to Dom. I think we got a question teed up on the hotline.
Yes, Mike just texted us. He said, my landlord just gave us 2 months to move out. He is selling the condo. What is a reasonable timeline to close a mortgage from start to finish?
Hey, Mike, great question. So this is my analogy. We're the bus. We can move as fast as you can drive it. Realistically, 30 days or less. I would, if you're going to go out there and make an offer, I would suggest 30 days. The all-time record, is far less than that. I don't want to throw it out there because I don't want to encourage you to shorten that timeline. We're in the middle of one now. We're going to close in 11 days. It was a rescue deal that came from another lender who denied it at the last minute. I'm not quite sure why they denied it. I don't know, maybe we're magic. We were able to find a way to make it work, but that one was 11 days from when it landed in our lap. Now, the difference is that package was ready to roll. As fast as you can get your documents to your lender should be able to perform. So if you can get everything up front, that's going to make life a lot easier on you throughout the process. But I think with only 2 months, you need to get rolling and find a place, because that's probably going to be the hardest part of this equation. Pre-qualification or pre-approval rather takes 1 to 2 days, again, depending on your document submission. After that, we can move as fast as you can. But get started now if you're seriously considering doing this in 60 days, because the hardest part of that timeline is going to be finding that house in that first 30 days of that window to make it work for you. So hopefully that helped. If you have questions on that, Mike, just give me a shout, 561-291-8569, anytime during the week, or anytime, the Anytime hotline, right? Or shoot us an email. You can find all of our contact information on the web at www.mr.mortgage. So, hey, I want to share that high in the Andes mountain thing I mentioned in the first segment of the show this week. My friend was vacationing down there. Actually, he's buying down there. And I never call anything a trend until it happens to me 3 times. And this happened to me 3 times in the last week. So we're refinancing his house. He's going to pull some equity out of his house, and he went down to Ecuador. He's buying a place, and he's going to live in Ecuador. There's no real estate tax. They're paying him 12% on his CD for some introductory period of a year to bring investment into the country, and very, very low cost of living. So he's capitalizing on all the appreciation. He's got a few properties, so he's only doing this on one. He's pulling the cash out, going down there, and he swears he's going to live down there full time, but I think he's just going to be a part-time resident. But I call it a trend because 2 times this week, I've talked to both women, interestingly enough, both single women, actually, interestingly enough, that are looking to Mexico. They're buying properties in Mexico, and they're going to Airbnb the properties out, but they're capitalizing on equity that's been created in this U.S. housing market during this boom and the low interest rates that we currently have, because they're far lower than they are in Mexico or in Ecuador. You can't even get a quote-unquote proper mortgage. But it's just an amazing opportunity that they're looking globally. When I look at opportunity, I'm thinking North Carolina. I'm thinking Tennessee. I'm not thinking the Andes. I'm thinking the Blue Ridge Mountains. So it's just pretty wild how I think we're in a more global environment than ever before. But 3 times this week, I've talked to people who are cashing out of their equity in one form or another here in the States and buying either a vacation home or a full-time residence in another country. So I just find that fascinating. You hear me all the time talking about looking past the circumstances to find the opportunity, and these 3 individuals certainly have done that. So I'm going to bring you a lot more on the Ecuadorian circumstance and situation, because he's actually going to build a business around that where he's going to help other people who want to do the same thing. But that's for a future conversation. That's in the works. I just find it fascinating. I wanted to throw that out there. Again, my name is Mark Eitel. This is the Mr. Mortgage Show. You can reach us on the Anytime hotline, 561-291-8569. That's 561-291-8569. That's truly anytime. It pushes to my office when we're not on the air. Or visit us online at www.mr.mortgage. That's www.mr.mortgage.
That's a wrap. Join Mark Eitel next week for more thrilling, edge-of-your-seat discussions about real estate and mortgages right here on The Mr. Mortgage Show.